Awesome! Welcome back at a new Indie Dev Talks with indie developers. This time I have Deetman at my studio, and he's from Keycon Interactive, and he's going to explain everything about his game and how he started his company, right? So Paul, can you introduce yourself a little?
I'm Deetman, managing director at Keycon Interactive, starting a game company together with my brother because we were so obsessed by these big 3D adventures. So especially with Guerrilla here in the Netherlands, we said, why is there not a second one? So let's try it out.
Oh wow, so you're doing it with your brother, right? So do you have both experience in the game industry, or how did you enroll into the industry?
And now we have. But no, we started a little bit different. My brother went into more IT, so more IT development. I think it was kind of the first course of what now game studies are. And I was more in audio. I did audio engineering, more in the music field and how to make beautiful pieces of music, recording artists and that kind of stuff. For that, we were actually cleaners. So we cleaned elementary schools.
That's a jump of jobs. That's crazy. Nice. That gives all of us hope, right?
I had a brilliant time cleaning elementary schools. It was a side job next to our high school. And yeah, it was a very dedicated job. You know what's up. Also, the responsibilities were not the highest, but I had a great time.
Amazing. Okay. Like 2 people worked on this game, or did you like have freelance?
No. We had for the game that we eventually made, which is Deliver Us the Moon. You can say there's an average of 15 people working on it with a peak of 21 people.
So quite a lot of people. And how long did it took to finish the game?
We took 4 years, maybe even a little bit longer. But then again, you have to take in consideration, we started at the kitchen table, stole a whiteboard from our sister's room, flipped open a few laptops, and we said, like, let's start this. The whole development in starting a company, being more entrepreneurial about things, not just making games and having some fun. We also started with a complete different concept, which was more a horror game. So yeah, with all these things and kind of learning experience taken in consideration, definitely a 4-year development phase.
Okay, so you say that you started with horror and then you tested it and it failed, or like what was like going from that to more to space?
We were developing a horror game. I think it was kind of in the likes when Amnesia came out and Slenderman, and we said, like, okay, I think we can do something in a similar direction. My brother and I have a fascination for horror, so that's what a lot of people don't know, since we made a very grounded sci-fi game eventually. And we tested something out with a cool labyrinth, and at some point we were testing it out with some QAers, and it wasn't not really cutting it. At the time we're using Unity. Also graphic wise, we wanted to push a little bit further, so we needed to change engine, so we went to the Unreal Engine, and then we came up with it. We said, like, we need to do something fresh. Then we pitched with the whole team, and the team was, I think, consisting of 5 people, and everybody was pitching in an idea, trying to aim for a 4-month project. And that's where I pitched Moon Man for 5 minutes, and that's where everybody said, like, okay, let's vote for the best concept, and it turned out to be Moon Man, which is now Deliver Us the Moon.
Did you find a publisher, or did you publish it yourself?
So first of all, we were on our own. Then we got a little bit of a subsidy from the Dutch government, which is nice. That's actually led to doing a Kickstarter. So we said, okay, let's make a Kickstarter for 100,000 euros. We pushed that. We were a little bit lucky because I think we sent it to 5,000 YouTubers and streamers. And then luckily enough, we got picked up by Gronk, one of the biggest YouTubers and Twitch players in Germany. He became kind of this ambassador for what we had. It was really a tech demo at the time. That pushed our Kickstarter into success. That's 100K we used to travel, spend the studio a little bit. We can now reach a little bit higher ambition. Let's get the gear away, but then also make sure that we need to travel. So GDC in San Francisco, Los Angeles E3, also think about PAX, Boston. These things were great. Also in Europe, Gamescom, we need to find a partner to do this with. So we eventually found Starbreeze, struck a deal with them, which was very nice. Partnership on finance side, partnership also on the marketing side of things. We never came to that point. We were forced to break up with one another. So we broke up with Starbreeze. So we were independent again. That was quite tough. I needed to fire kind of our whole team. So we were back from 20 people to, I think, 6 people. So we needed to rebuild the company, which was a huge struggle. So we barely survived, and we had a game needed to see the light of day. We are forced to finish this game with an open ending. So that's what we did as an independent developer. People really liked it, and people wanted more. It wasn't even that bad. It's just that people felt a little bit cheated in the story. It's like, hey, now I'm so involved into the story. I really like it. I love the graphics. I love the puzzles. puzzles, but you leave me hanging here. So people are asking for more.
So is more coming?
So that's what we did. Then again, we are struggling. So we are struggling to barely survive month to month. And then again, like we had people to pay off as well, because like this game, it costed a lot. So we are pushing it to an extent where we could just sustain the people that we have, which was still kind of 6 people on payroll and maybe a few freelancers and some interns. Everybody helped and everybody sacrificed. It's not only Koen and I that we were carrying the company and that we only have like the pain and sacrifice. The whole team felt it. The whole team was sacrificing, was believing in this product. So we tried to finish the game with everything that we had and all the sacrifices. And then we said like, hey, with the last piece of money, let's go again, travel to GDC. And then we connected to, I think there was a thing in Los Angeles. And then we also connected Boston to it in one trip. So it was 3 weeks. My brother and I just hustling. But we saw off very fast that we were old news. The game was already out. People were like, yeah, what up? What's the next game? And we're like, we still need to make this happen. We saw as well that we were just on PC and we needed to get it to the Xbox and to PlayStation, but that's porting, and porting costs a lot, and especially our game. So at least like 100k you needed for porting the game to PlayStation and Xbox. And our target audience, which is a little bit older, it's not the Fortnite player 14 years old, but it's above 25, people that like this narrative games, like this sci-fi adventure. So that was our target. So we needed to get that done. And I think we talked to everybody. So from platforms, from PlayStation, Sony, Valve, from Steam, Xbox, Humble Bundles, to all the publishers that you can think of. And I think in the end of the week in Boston, after like 3 weeks of exhaustion and sleeping in very bad hotels, we talked to a guy, Al. He was from Riot Productions, and we pitched again the game, and we said like, hey, we have a complete version now and we can kind of re-release it. And we had a good plan for it. And this is what we need for the team, and this is what we need for the game. And he came back to us like, yeah, very, very interesting. Actually really something that could fit our portfolio. Probably in a month we're gonna review it because we have so much in our plates. But then he came back and he said like, I sent it to London and the guys know about you and they're gonna review it right now. So we went back to the Netherlands. I think a week after that whole trip, we went to London and then we signed a deal with them, which hit it all the points that we wanted. We wanted to have it localized in more languages. We wanted, of course, we wanted the port versions, and we wanted to sustain the team, which was very important to us. So this is when we struck a deal and we re-released the game, but now it's a complete edition. And that's kind of the story how we got to the complete edition of Deliver Us the Moon.
Nice. You kind of market yourself all the time during those meetings and events, right? So what is your, if you say like, this is my unique selling point, what is the unique selling point of this game then?
There is no violence in there. So we picked a game, and we also made it ourselves pretty hard to make our first game a very mysterious main character where there's no conflict in the term of like combat, but we used environmental hazards and puzzles to get your way through this. I think that's one is quite unique, like a very grounded sci-fi experience. How is it to go to the moon? In the terms of marketing, I think since we didn't have a lot of money, we took booths. They're quite expensive, so if you want to showcase at these big events, it's quite expensive. We got farmer suits, and the farmer suits look like space suits, and we put some patches on it.
Nice.
To look like space astronauts. We actually went to ESA first, the European Space Agency, and they couldn't give us the suit. So then we came up with the idea to say, you know what, let's go to Dutch farmers and ask them if we can get their suits. We could kind of cosplay with the group of people. Let's say we're with 5 people at a small booth, but everybody could see us. It's like, hey, these are these astronaut guys. So I think we got known for, especially at this physical conferences, as like the space guys.
So you just make a big entree basically, like, oh wait, those dudes are having like, well, farmer suits, but whoa, that seems space suits. Nice.
It's a cheap way to say, like, of course you're walking around as well, and you constantly need to be marketing. If you just wear a shirt like this is a company shirt, it works as well, and it's great that they see the name on my back, but it's even greater if you can give a little bit of the experience. I call it the Disney experience. if you're waiting in line, you're already getting an adventure. It's not just waiting in line, you get on the ride, and the ride is only the experience. No, it starts with entering the park. There, the whole adventure starts. And waiting in line should be an adventure as well. And that's for conferences and for a lot of other indies. I think it's very important to know is it needs to be this escape. People play games because they want to escape the reality and problems they have right now. Or they want to experience something they don't have in their normal life. And I think you can do this exactly at conferences. The thing is, you always think that you need money. You need to just be a little bit more smart about how you dedicate your budget. And for us, it was suits. It was farmer suits to give a little bit of an extra experience.
That's really cool. What is the experience that you want the player to achieve when playing your game?
It's all about being an astronaut. So everything that you feel as like, I was a kid, it's like, I want to be an astronaut. What are you gonna do? I want to launch myself on a rocket. I want to be in space in zero gravity. I want to be on the moon surface. I want to drive a moon rover. All these things that you think an astronaut would do in space is something that we put into the first moon in the best power as we could.
When I was playing, I just felt some parts of the game really gave me some motion sickness. Like, is it like a common issue on the game, or like how can we have less motion sickness, or what's the reason behind?
We have a zero gravity sequence that maybe is so real that you actually get a little motion sick. But now so it's actually the real experience that real astronauts have.
Yes. I shouldn't be an astronaut.
Maybe that says it. No, it's a small percentage that have some uncomfortable feelings with the zero gravity, but it's a small percentage. I can only say I'm sorry, but now most people really enjoy it. We do have a first person and third person approach, meaning that sometimes, and especially the zero gravity is in first person, because we felt it simulates being in zero gravity the best way possible.
Yeah, it does. It really felt like I was in space and I have no clue what is left and right and up and down.
The vertical happens, right?
Yes, it was really nice. But then I was like, my stomach also thinks like, wait, what is going on here? And how much different is the idea from The Man on the Moon and Deliver Us the Moon? Like,
the first story, Moon Man, was about an adventure on the moon. So it was kind of an adventure. So what it kind of, the first pitch is kind of what Deliver Us the Moon turned to be. But then again, we couldn't make that. So when we were doing the pitch, we know like that of course that's the dream, that's the ambition, that we want to make an adventure, Tomb Raider, but then on the moon, and then as like your first game as an indie, and like, okay, and 3D, and it needs to be super high fidelity graphics. So I think that we wanted a lot. Along the way, the whole team, everybody that put their heart and soul into this and their signature on it, it changed for the better. And I think especially if you're directing a game into a certain way, or you're the head of the studio or managing director, you need to make sure that everybody can put their heart and soul into it. And if it's just a vision of the director, the creative director, or whatever, and it needs to be exactly that picture, I think you'll be very hard to work with. So is it exactly how I imagined it? No, it's not exactly that. I think it's even better than what I imagined. So my imagination works in a way, sure, it's endless ambitious. So there's an infinity on ambition there, but you also need to know that you need to make something a reality. You need to manifest that. So for the team that we had and what we could create, I think this is an amazing result of this symbiosis between all these disciplines. And I'm very proud of the team and the people that worked in the past and are working still now with us, that could make this into reality.
Well, you create your ASEA robot, like you needed something to guide the player more, or like what was the reason to add the robot in?
Because it's simulating also a very lonely experience. That's what we wanted to go for, this very isolated feel, very atmospheric, cinematic. We also wanted to give you some sort of companion, like a dog, like somebody that's on your side. So you don't really have another character to rely on, another partner in crime, but you do have a robot. And the robot is of course not human, but it might feel a little bit like you're not alone. And that's kind of what we wanted to go for. And sure, gameplay wise, you could use it as a little bit of a guidance, a little bit of a help. Sometimes he's nodding into a certain direction so he can help you out, but mainly also to make you connect also to sometimes technology. Like technology sometimes can feel like you're Wilson from Castaway, you know? Also not a human being, but he still connects to it as if it is a person. And that's something that we like to to portray with it.
I almost felt like, oh, this like Portal 1, the robot, or but that's... Was that an inspiration or was it just by coincidence?
We had many designs for the robot. I think it started with HAL 9000 from 2001 Space Odyssey. But then we said like, okay, it needs to be something that's moving around. Eventually it turned out this way. And sure, I know Portal, not specifically inspired by it, but yeah, sure, I can see the resemblance.
So you did mostly the music, right? You said, or
no, that's Sander van Zanten. So
okay,
because you're running a studio, and I have a musical background of composing, and we do run a music company alongside, which is called Hunchback Music, focusing on like trailer music for big campaigns of games and movies. But of course, you're running a studio, so you need to learn how to delegate everything and to say who is doing what. Sure, you can maybe hold the vision for something, but you need to give it away to make a project and a game like this. You can't make that on your own. We found Sander van Zanten very early on in the process, and he could dedicate all his time to it. And as you can see, like we have a soundtrack of 70 tracks. There's a lot of care into the sound and music. For Deliver Us the Moon, he did both. So he did the sound design and he did the music. And where I came in a little bit more is maybe on the music supervision side. So there's one point where we changed the whole palette of the soundtrack, where it became from more like flute, adventurous music, almost kind of like World of Warcrafty music, to a more minimalistic soundtrack where the piano is more of the lead, the emotion portraying of the emotion that you as the player go through, giving you kind of the bits and pieces for you to feel a lot of things. And that's what Sander did beautifully for the soundtrack. And it's very adaptive as well. So depending on how fast you play, the music will change on where you are in the game.
What is really your role then? In what did you do? Because you say I gave the vision and I talk with people. Like, is that what you're doing? Giving visions and talking to people, or?
So from the beginning is you wear so many hats. So from indeed making the narrative in the beginning to changing to my brother was doing level design, from doing indeed music to game design even. But then again, like you learn very fast early in the process, you can't do this all. So you pick the dedicated people for it. So we had a dedicated narrative writer, we had a dedicated game designer for it, dedicated level designers for it. So you grow the team. Yeah, sure. In the beginning, you kind of become a jack of all trades. You do all these things. So from having a vision, from making mistakes, from trying things out, engines, and you're in engine and out engine, and you're doing business development, and you're doing marketing, and it's kind of, you're going insane from that. But you have to. And unfortunately, this is kind of how you just start figuring out your way in a company and how you grow a company. It's a whole process. I can't really give a dedicated thing to say this is exactly what I did. Programming, I never did. I never did programming for the game. But then eventually what Deliver Us the Moon is, I think it's more of the initiative that you take, and then you need to run the company. So of course you have the creative vision, more in the likes like, hey, are we still making what we want to make? So you keep kind of hold on what are we creating, what are we making. Then you have the production side of things, so you need to make sure everything is in time, everything is same in the money. So you become kind of this schizophrenic person. And I think with Deliver Us the Moon, it's from managing direction to business development, production, so being a producer, to more of a creative director position. But then again, like now I would say more of on a visionary perspective. My brother and I are more visionary directors. Then my brother goes a little bit deeper into the game, where it becomes more creative direction, where you would then identify me more as a managing director, in like managing the company, managing that the product will see the light of day. But then again, that's more of the production side of things on an individual project. But when you work on more projects, you also need to make sure that your company is running.
I have not heard so many people saying that they're working with their brother. So how do you think that influenced like your company, or your like the way that you work together? Since
we were young, we stole, I think, a camcorder from my dad, set it up into the garden, and then we played Star Wars, and we did 007, and we made our own movies. Very bad though, but very fun, very way to explore this adventure. So I think from very close on, we were writing books, we were making music, music, we were doing video editing, we were doing so many creative things. We were playing games, watching movies. We wanted to create this. We really loved entertainment. I think that little escape from reality where you could make these bigger than life stories was something always attractive to us. And when we grew older, then reality hits and you need to do a lot of other stuff before you develop this interest a little further. Yeah, I think we combined it eventually by working together. Then he needed to make a little game concept for his school. And then I said, okay, let's make some music for it to make it even better and presentable. It was just always there. There was just a moment to say like, okay, let's make this official, which is always a very weird thing, doing things professionally. I'm still playing in the garden, if you ask me.
What is the hidden message of Deliver Us the Moon?
Kind of what humanity is about. It's also what our, maybe we want to hint as well to what is exactly our purpose. And this is actually good to spread humankind further, and we kind of spread out over the universe. If I would ask myself, I think it's a natural thing to survive. Like, I think it would be such a shame if humanity just dies. Then again, it's that little blue dots in this extremely, incredibly large universe. And that's everything we know. Like the people that we love, our history, great leaders, bad leaders, our architecture, everything, the religion, science, everything that we know has happened on that little blue dot, and the rest still new to us. And I think space is the next frontier. And like we discovered the sea, and we actually didn't discover the seas inside, but when we tried to discover new land, we went overseas and to discover something new. I think the next frontier is space. So yeah, for me, it's a very close to the heart thing, as my grandfather was a philosopher and astronomer as well, building his own telescopes. Guess that sparked it. I did that whole interest in how vast the universe is. When we looked through the telescope and saw the moon for the first time, I think that's where it originally started, this whole interest.
In the story of the game, there is like a conflict, right? There are people that want to go the other way, and there are people that want to look back, right?
It's what happens right now, you know, like people say like, hey, but we have to first fix our problems here before we go to another exoplanet or the moon or Mars or even further. You have Gliese as well. So why do we think about all these exoplanets? Shouldn't we fix it first here? So you of course have people say like, okay, shouldn't we do both? That's the one excludes the other. By going to another exoplanet doesn't mean that you bail on what we have here. But then of course you have different opinions, and we kind of wanted to give that a voice, not specifically pointing you in the direction what is right or what is wrong, more giving you the podium to say, what do you think? Should we actually explore the universe? Should we spread out? Or what do you think we call home, you know?
And also I noticed there are quite some hidden eggs, right, in the game. Yeah. So what is your favorite hidden egg?
Should I say that? Yeah, I will say that. So there's a speculation that the moon landing was fake. So you have this whole conspiracy that the moon landing was fake. And I think Stanley Kubrick filmed it, so that he faked it. And then we said, because Stanley Kubrick was a very dedicated man, so we thought it was very funny if we set up a green screen stage on the moon, so he could film the fake moon landing on the real moon. That was kind of funny.
Nice, I love it.
Actually, my brother's idea, he said like, I think that's funny if we put it on the moon. And I said, that's brilliant. We need to put it there. So if you try and you're on the moon surface with your moon rover and you drive a little bit of the surface, you can counter this green screen stage where Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landing.
How do you test also with like people that really love narrative, but you also kind of have like puzzling? Like, how was the playtesting of the game?
We had quite a few QA moments from closed beta, meaning like it's not an open and it's not because we give it to the public, so it was all in-house. Sure, there's a lot of like technical stuff that you need to test, like if it's not breaking, if you're not falling through a level and that kind of stuff. But more on the narrative side of things, yeah, we had like a huge questionnaire for people playing it, and sometimes we did it in a full playthrough, but per level was interesting to say is like, hey, what do we want to get out of this? And do most people that play the game got that information? And then we iterated on it. Sure, you can always make it better, but at one time you need to close the game. Probably some people like, why didn't they do this? Yeah, probably because there was no time, there was no money. Like it's, I wanted all these things. Why didn't we make that explosion better? It's like, we could, but we couldn't have it at that time. So we did everything to the best of our powers to create the best possible outcome. I think it shows, and I think the ratings from the people showed as well that they really seem to like the story and they seem to get it and they want more.
A lot of viewers, they are starting or they just thinking about maybe starting their own indie studio. So what would be your advice for starting?
Don't listen to people. Just start. You can think about it, cut away from the theory and go. It's really just start. The most simple and practical advice I can give you is perfection is insecurity in disguise. And perfection is you are insecure about doing something. So you try to make more documents and more research and you go to these talks, you go to GDC talks and you got it. Like eventually you got it. You start from where you are and you're going to make a lot of mistakes and own up to these mistakes and just take the responsibility and make it better and make it better and make it better. And that's how we did. It's like we really started at the kitchen table and we didn't know anything. We just started very naively. And I think if I would know what I would know now, then I would be scared and I wouldn't start. And therefore I would say the naive brain is it's a blessing to have that and hold on to that as much as you can. And then of course, listen to people if you eventually becomes more serious, take responsibility as much as you can, figure it out, figure it out. If you want to reach something, it's like, okay, be clear with your goals. This is what I want to reach. Make sure it is somewhat realistic. But then again, don't be pessimistic. Rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. It's all about manifesting. It's all about doing. So it's not about wishing for it and saying like, hey, let me just wish for it and then the things will come. Just put yourself into the opportunity that you have. The more opportunity you create for yourself, the luckier you get.
Nice. Yeah, that's some optimistic realism. How do you get being so motivated, like when you work on a game for 4 years?
Good question. We really believed in this. Even when things turned south for us, I couldn't let it go. Like to an extent where people called me crazy and my brother and the whole team crazy. It's like, should you continue? Like it's almost like obviously failing. You know, what are you guys doing? Like obviously it's not going well in a direction that you almost need to have your company. I think it's a combination between being proud enough to say no, I don't want to be the charlatan that's just saying things. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the person that is overselling something but could never deliver. I don't want to be that person that promises the world but actually can't deliver in the end. No, it needs to manifest in reality. The line is very thin between that, is being the person that's just selling air castles, never come and see the light of day, and the person that sells the air castle but actually makes it happen. I think we really believed and the team really pushed themselves forward in the toughest ways to make it happen. I think we all believed in the product and we all, before we even surrendered to failure, we said we need to get this game out. And I think that's that healthy motivation that we say like this story needs to be told. This is something that we, whatever it takes, push on market. And everybody was putting their signature into. It's also like point of no return, you know. Like we're so far, we said, okay, we need to finish it.
And you had like funding from the government, right?
We had 15,000 euros in the beginning, so that's it.
But then you need to make a product, right? They're not suddenly just giving money, or is it just basically if you have a good concept you get money?
The beginning, the subsidy was 15k for a horror project that we pitched, and that was the first game, and we proved the concept and the kind of what we did actually helped being the way we are. So we are now 30 people big. So as much as it wasn't money that went into the game of Deliver Us the Moon, it did went into the whole development of the studio turning out this way. And that's actually where the subsidy is for, is sure, they want to see the product and see you doing it, but it needs to be there to stimulate the studio to become as big as that we are. It doesn't have to be the conclusion that you grow bigger. It's just a dream of me and my brother to say, sure, we have a dream of ourselves and to put a signature on the world, but to be responsible for all the dreams, for the people that we work with, our employees and all the friends that we make games with. We can give that opportunity is way more worth than my own signature on the world. Especially stuff like that for starting indies. It's an amazing stimulus to start what you are striving for. You're spending it a lot. So even when the budgets are growing, mm-hmm. It's not that you become rich from it. Especially how we run the studios, that we invested everything, every last cent that we had in the game. Everything.
And I see you touch often like your penguin. Like what is the story about the penguin of your studio?
So funny enough, it's my brother's favorite toy. when we were younger, we had like a favorite toy, and he had like a little penguin. I had a little Quasimodo doll, and we were always playing around with that. So since we made the companies, we had being a freelancer, but then officially, and we made companies up already. Before we start, we said like, okay, let's make it now an official company so we can work with it. We kept the name. So Geoken actually is the gamer tag of my brother, and then the penguin is the toy that we always played around when we were like young kids at our house. So it's just keeping it close to the heart. Like it's a childhood thing that we carry with us. It was always kind of this child's innocence, the children's imagination that's so powerful that we said like let's keep it.
Wow, that's such a hidden message in like your company name and your mascotte, basically.
It's kind of it's interesting because we make this very realistic sci-fi approach, and then we have this very sweet cartoony penguin. I think it's really who we are. It's we make this graphic games, but then again, and it's maybe not completely known for everybody because it needs to then be a more graphical, high fidelity logo. But then again, we like this. This is what we are.
Yeah, but that's nice. That's a nice signature. I think it also makes you different from like, yeah, because we would suppose that you have such graphic, like maybe an astronaut helmet or something like that. But that makes this total sense if you see it like, oh yeah, that doesn't have a story, right?
We saw as well, especially during the big YouTuber Gronk helping us out, that we had this enormous load of kind of a transfer of fans where they kind of bombed our Twitch and our Twitter, kind of blew up in that sense, and everybody really liked the penguin. So we had some fans making wooden statues from the penguin, sending us little plush toys they made themselves, which is heartwarming to us. So we said that as well, like if people really like that, then sure, maybe you want to mature up the logo at one point, but he said like, no, if people really love it, that's something you shouldn't go against, you know, like you should just work with that. Then there must be something that they feel as well than what we feel.
Nice. I think that's really beautiful. I was just wondering, like, because of the art, is it like assets that you all made by yourself, or is it like an asset pack? Because it feels so consistent. So I'm like, wait, did they really made it, or did they use the asset pack?
So funny enough, we when you block out, and especially nowadays, you have all these asset packs, and back in the day you didn't. We work with the Unreal Engine. We start off sometimes if you select, okay, we need something fast, and we need to use it as like a tool to make it a little bit better or presentable in that sense. We sometimes use asset packs, but a lot of what we used was handmade. That's taken a lot of effort from the team. I would say for people, use as much to your disposal as you have. So if it's a preset, don't overthink it. If you are an indie developer, don't overthink it too much. It's probably just our industry that sees that it's an asset pack, but you're making it for the consumer. You're making it for the gamer. If it doesn't matter, if let's say you need a piece of grass, how much uniqueness do you need, you know, like depending if you maybe make Honey I Shrunk the Kids or something, then and it's very characteristic to your game, then sure, go for it. But then again, use everything to your disposal to tell your story. So don't feel that you are doing something wrong or that your artistic expression isn't coming to life if you use asset packs. They're great asset packs. So therefore we use it in moments that were not as much characteristic enough that it's dedicating our character of the game. But yes, we did use it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in that sense, but then again, make sure that the objects that are meaningful to your game, of course, make that custom. That makes your game something beautiful, you know. But use everything to your disposal. Like it's mostly, if you look in the mirror, that's the biggest problem, you know.
Yeah, often we all have barriers like, oh, I need to do this and that, and yeah, and then
because people think that or people think this. Yeah, it's happens to all of us.
Exactly. We all have that little devil on our shoulder saying all those bad stuff about if you do this or that.
That little voice in your head that tells you like, oh, people are gonna, let's say you were at a network event and you want to approach this specific person that has an experience in life and an experience in the industry, and you're like, okay, you want to approach it, but you always hear that voice like, yeah, but you're probably not good enough, and he's not waiting or she's not waiting for you, or you're gonna be annoying. That's voice. Everybody has that. It's just a difference between how much do you listen to that. I hear it as well, but I'm just not listening to it. So I'm like, yeah, thank you for your contribution. I'm gonna do this, and it's scary. It's always scary, and the more you do it, the more you understand. Like, funny. It's just that little voice of insecurity that tries to protect you, but actually, it's protecting you from even the possibility in unfolding yourself. Just next time, if you hear that voice, think that everybody has that, and just don't listen to it. And only know that that voice is trying to keep you safe. Sure, if you don't do it, it's a safer choice, but it's not giving you the opportunity.
Yeah, fair enough. That's yeah, I agree with this 100%. So for ending this interview, like, what would be your last advice or thing that you want to share with all of us?
I kind of said it already. Is just do it. And I think it's Nike that always said it. It's true. It's more about that. Manifest into reality. Don't wait for it. Don't overthink things. Everybody's always doubting. If you're doubting about that video to post, just post it and iterate on it. If it's that Instagram post that you want to do, you're like, oh, but the photo needs to be better edited. Don't bugger over it. Just post it. If you want to start a company and you really believe in these ideas, just go for it. You learn way more by doing than by studying for it. So dive into it, be naive, see it as a blessing, and then along the way you are learning more and more about how things are unfolding for yourself. And then just trust yourself as well, and trust the people around you to help you. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. It feels always as being a weakness, like, oh, but if you need to ask people for help, then you are weak. You have to do it yourself. You have to be dependent or independent. No, ask people for help. I'm doing it all the time. I'm asking people. I'm failing all the day. I'm constantly iterating on the failures that I have, and eventually it brings me somewhat of the goals that I want. Go for it.
Nice. That's basically also my motto. So I totally agree with this. So thank you very much for all your wisdom and your your comments and like your whole life story that you just basically shared with us in this interview. I think everyone, if they have more questions, they can hit them up in the comments, of course, and or follow you, because you're most likely going to launch something in the future. So yeah, thank you very much for being here. And next month I'm going to discuss acreates, which is basically a game made by Dutch students. So that will be also exciting. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, bye bye.